Being a big fan of horror, I love games of all different styles, whether it be the more realistic or the sprite-based style of horror that we've seen creep up in the last few years through indie gaming. And there's a new one called Uncanny Valley out on the PlayStation 4. But does this game end up chilling you to the bone? Or is it so bad, you'll be screaming bloody murder? Uncanny Valley is a completely sprite-based 2D style of horror game, similar to the likes of Lone Survivor or Claire. In the game, you're playing as Tom, a newly hired security guard who's working night shift at a pretty much abandoned building. Once the introduction ends up playing out and you kind of get your nightly duties for what your job is supposed to entail, you then get pretty much freedom to do what you want as far as exploring the building, or leaving the building, going to bed early, or showing up late. Whatever you decide to do will end up having ramifications that will end up affecting the story as it plays out. The game is built around multiple different endings and multiple ways certain events in the game can end up transpiring. So this is one of those games that really encourages multiple playthroughs. In the game, there's a few other characters that you end up interacting with, including Buck, the other security guard who works the day shift. His sprite alone is hilarious because he's a rather rotund individual, so just seeing him kind of stumble his way through the hallways is pretty funny. And then there's also Eve, who is pretty mysterious. She says she's the cleaning lady for the building that you're staying in, but there's a lot more going on to her than just that. To be honest, the game started off a bit slow until I kind of got the idea of what was going on and let the story kind of progress. It has a day cycle, so basically after exploring around like the first day, nothing really interesting happens, but as you make it to farther days, certain events end up going on that force your hand into doing stuff. There is a power outage, and you have to decide whether or not you want to go get the power back on or just leave it for Buck to fix in the morning. And of course, both ways are going to end up having different results depending upon what you pick. While the upper end of the facility that you're in is pretty much bare bones, with just a few things laying around that are remnants of the people that used to work at that building, soon you find out there's something weird going on in the lower floors, and once you actually can get into the lower floors is where the game really ends up picking up. This is where the true horror elements come into play, where the action picks up, and where your skill is going to be put to the test as far as being able to survive, figure out what's going on, and eventually get the good ending to the game. Along with just exploring, you're going to find plenty of items, and the inventory system is a little bit clunky. You have to kind of bring up a menu using the touchpad and select an item and then pick where you want to put it. This obviously would work better on a PC using a keyboard and mouse than what it ends up working on the PlayStation 4 controller, but once I adjusted, things were pretty okay. One of my biggest complaints about the game is actually the text in the game. The font that was chosen for the dialogue sequences is actually really hard to read sometimes. There's a few letters in particular that you kind of have to read multiple times, and then you're finally like, oh, that's what's being said here. There were also plenty of moments where text boxes interacted with other text boxes, basically just making a jumbled mess on my screen, and I was unable to read what exactly was being said or what I was being told to do. While the atmosphere overall in Uncanny Valley is quite good, since it is a bit slow at the beginning, I feel that some people may end up getting bored with it, but it's one of those games, since it is relatively short, it is worth persevering and continuing on, because once you get to that second kind of half of the game is where the most enjoyment for me ended up coming from. From the technical side of things, the game didn't crash on me. I didn't run any major slowdown or glitching, other than, of course, the text boxes consistently messing up on me. Uncanny Valley is available for $11.99 on the PlayStation 4. It doesn't feature a full trophy list or a platinum, unfortunately. While I appreciate what they were going for in the game, and I like some of the aspects, especially some of the atmosphere and design to the creatures that you end up seeing, there are a few great moments with the dream sequences, and then of course near the end of the game, that really bring the game up a notch. Unfortunately, some of those moments are a little bit few and far between, especially early on. Multiple playthroughs is essential to get everything that Uncanny Valley is going to try to do, but it's still a pretty short experience, taking me roughly an hour and a half to beat my initial playthrough, and then the second time around was a bit shorter as I was going for one of the other endings. I feel with a bit more or just a lower price tag, I could recommend Uncanny Valley to a lot of horror fans out there, but as it stands right now, I'm going to be giving the game a 6 out of 10. But anyway guys, that's going to wrap up this review. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course I hope you enjoyed.